The conversation around whether a player is world-class or not is actually quite boring. So why have I made a video on it? Because I think it's time that we really start giving Arsenal players the credit they deserve and put them in conversations that I believe they belong into. Right. If you are taking a definition of the word world-class, Cambridge Dictionary says that it's someone or something world-class is one of the best that there are of that type in the world, right? So for me, I think it's fair to say if a player is maybe top 5 in their position, then I think you can say they're world-class. But some people will say the word world-class is thrown around way too much and it should be the very elite, forget positions, the very, very elite at the game. There should only ever be 5 maybe to 10 players that are world-class at one time. And some will even say you can have an era in which there are no world-class footballers. Some will say you can have that. You can have a time where actually the game's just not quite at that same level and the world-class footballers like Ronaldinho and all them back in the day, you know, we don't quite have that as much. So a lot of people can fall on so many different sides of this conversation. So if we just remove the word world-class, that's going to be a mouthful throughout. If we remove the word world-class and I present this video saying, are the people we're talking about here in the top 5 of their position, could be in the top 5 of their position, and will be one day in the top 5 of their position, then I think we start to frame this slightly differently and actually have slightly more fair and honest conversations around our players and how good they are. Because the one thing is that I'm going to go through quite a lot of players here, and then in the end people go, so Arsenal have all these world-class players and what, you might go another season trophyless and you know what, and you're still defending Arteta and blah blah. Let's just give them credit for what they're doing as individuals in their positions and not always look at the collective, because we do a lot of looking at the collective in the team and the manager and all that. But these players, after what they did against Real Madrid, deserve some credit, man. We always talk about, can they do it on the biggest stage against the biggest teams and the biggest players, right? Coming up against the biggest players. And I think a lot of them showed that in the last few weeks. So let's give them credit. Here are my world-class players at Arsenal. I don't think there's any debate that this list of 4 here, I think they're world-class. Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice, William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes. There is a level of performance that they never fall below. And when we're saying they're struggling or they've not quite been at it today or they've had a bit of a bad game, it's usually by the standards they've set. Not, you know, almost others could give those performances and we go, wow, fair play, they did all right. That is something. It's when they're kind of in a league of their own. Bukayo Saka, what's there to say? He can play any position. He's right foot, left foot, whichever side he goes. I know people don't want him to move from the right wing, but he's so good, he could, and he'd be brilliant. He is, the hold-up plays there, so you can go long to him. His ability to take on fullbacks, his creativity, he can hurt you in central areas, he can hurt you in wide areas, set pieces, he's brilliant. What can this player not do? Bukayo Saka is not just one of the best right wingers in the league. He's not just one of the best right wingers in world football. He's one of the best forwards. In fact, one of the best players, period, for me, in world football. Who disagrees? I think he's got to that level. I think he's got to that conversation. And I'm so happy for him. Because there's always been a lot of dragging down Bukayo Saka. I don't know why. It feels like from rivals or sometimes in the media, there's kind of a reluctance to kind of really give him full praise. And you know, sometimes that's been me too. But I think we could put Saka in conversations with some of the best in the world. When you're talking about forwards and wingers, he's undoubtedly top 5 for me. I think there's no question. And you know what? I'm just smiling because fair play to him. And that goal at the Bernabeu as well, doing it on the big stage, but you've got to do it against this lot. You've got to do it in the Champions League. He's done it now. Euros, dragging England on the international stage, now against Real Madrid, carrying Arsenal. I've got no question that Bukayo Saka is world class. We're going to the others. Now, Nicky from West Ham Fan TV told me that Declan Rice was world class before we signed him. He said he'd seen Rio Ferdinand, Joe Cole, Frank Lampard, these amazing young players come through at West Ham, and he said, Declan Rice, he's the best of them. Now, some of you might disagree, that's fine, but a West Ham fan giving that kind of praise before we'd even signed him, before we'd even kicked a ball, and now look, he's done even more for England since then. He's won a European trophy with West Ham. He might win one with Arsenal, but touch wood. He is delivering on the big stage, Declan Rice, and the big thing he's got, There's no better ball-winning midfielder in world football for me. Not one. And when you've got an attribute like that, a bit like Trent's crossing, I think that does put you in a certain conversation too. Declan Rice, no question for me. And William Saliba and Gabriel, look, I could go on for ages, but let me put it this way. Van Dijk, Bastoni, Diaz, there are some unbelievable defenders out there. I think Saliba and Gabriel are top 5 today, right now. I think they're top 5. And I wouldn't trade them for anyone. And a Liverpool fan might watch that and go, what? So you wouldn't have Van Dijk starting for you? Listen, Van Dijk might well be probably the best defender in the world still. That's fine. When you're talking age, the years to come, where we kind of are as a team, Saliba and Gabriel for me. Like, I wouldn't trade them. I think when you take everything into account, I wouldn't trade Saliba and Gabriel. Maybe for a one-off game. But even then, I'd be reluctant to do it. I think they're so good. And of course there's a bias. An Arsenal shirt on, the Goonerverse, right? Like, of course there's a bias, of course. But I still think the bias comes into the conversations around would you swap them for this player or that player. But when you're talking about actually just evaluating the level of performance they're giving, I don't think it's that biased to say that Saliba and Gabriel are world-class players, two of the best centre-backs in the world. And I think Arsenal, for the first time that I've ever supported Arsenal, I think we can boast 4 world-class footballers, 4 who are legitimately some of the best in their positions. And for people going, yeah, but what have you won? We can't, they can't because you haven't delivered. But we have challenged for 2 titles, and even in a bad season, we're finishing second. And now we're in a Champions League semi-final. They're not miles from these conversations. Saka and Rice have been to Euros finals. Saliba has been to a Euros final. These aren't jokers here, right? They might not have got quite over the line, but I think we can still give them the world-class tag, because I think we're all convinced that in their careers, they will get over the line. By the way, Rice did with West Ham, and different, whatever. But I think we can say that about them. And I think we need to champion them. Because look how, unfortunately, Gabriel couldn't play, but look how Saliba, Rice and Saka stepped up on a pitch with Rudiger for Saliba, Bellingham, Tchouaméni, Valverde, Camavinga, Modric, Declan Rice we're talking about, Vinicius, Mbappe, Rodrigo, Bukayo Saka we're talking about. In Spain, they call him the torturer. Guys, let's give these players their credit. Let's give it to them. I'm so proud of them, and fair play, they're stepping up on the big stage, and they have been consistently. Now, I want to touch on a few other players that I think the conversation around them, I don't think they'll ever be quite labelled world-class for a particular reason. I'm not sure why that is, but I think we need to give them major props, and I think they could be one day. For me, in this list, I've got David Raya. I think another season like this one, I think people will start to really recognise him as one of the best goalkeepers in the world. I think Ben White was performing at extremely high level. I think people comfortably started to say that he's one of the best right-backs in the league, but he might have lost that position now to Jurrien Timber. Obviously, that injuries played a part in that. But yeah, I think there could be a conversation one day around that with Ben White. But these players still have years to come. Jurrien Timber, there's no defender in the world I'm more confident about locking down a top winger in world football, and I think Timber showed that on the stage. But Barcola, Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, Doué, and if we get to the final, we face Barcelona. You got Yamal, you got Lewandowski, you've got Rafinha. I shouldn't really put Lewandowski; he's not a winger, but more tests to come for Timber. More tests to come. But yeah, I think there could be a conversation around it, but obviously we've only really seen it for a year at Arsenal. And Martin Ødegaard, this time a year ago, people were saying he was world class, and I said that with the 4 I've mentioned who are world class, there's a level of performance they don't fall below. Ødegaard has fallen quite significantly below that this season. Injuries and stuff have played a part. But yeah, with those 4, I think there's a conversation where one day, and maybe that is still today, Arsenal fans will be putting some of those players in that conversation. I'm not sure I can, and I'm not today. I don't know if I will be in future, but yeah, some people will be and maybe are now. So I think that's kind of why there's an interesting combo around there. Now, a quick few words on Thomas Partey, because I think Thomas Partey is one of 5 players that we actually signed when he was world class. So I think we have signed, already established 5 world class players: Mesut Ozil, Alexis Sanchez, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Thomas Partey and Declan Rice. Now, if I've missed anyone, let me know in the comment section below. I think Thomas Partey when you look at the level of performance he's given this season, last season was injured, so you can't really judge him. He literally missed almost the whole campaign, came into the run and did well. Season before that, he was sensational. That was probably his best campaign for Arsenal. And then he was kind of like riddled with injuries before that, but he was like performing at such a good level when he did come in. He kind of lives in this, he's been it. Is he still? Probably. Let me know in the comment section below. Interesting conversation around Thomas Partey. And this season, you could easily argue that from the start, because I think Declan Rice has really come into his own 2025, but from the start till now, Partey's been one of Arsenal's best players this season, but certainly Arsenal's best midfielder this season. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below around sort of Thomas Partey where he kind of lives in this conversation. And I think Gunéry and Lewis Skelly, just to give them a mention, I think they could be one day, but they're so young, there's a long way to go, and we've seen youngsters make lightning starts and then they kind of fall away, maybe their development's not quite right or whatever, but I also think these two are playing to a level little Lewis Skelly has done on the stage against Real Madrid. I think we could really be talking about two serious talents here who, yeah, could be given that label one day. Now, everyone, look, I know how this sounds. We've beaten Real Madrid, and everyone's getting all giddy, and suddenly everyone's world class. It's not that. It's just giving praise to the four that I think definitely are. And I think it's recognising that because we haven't got quite over the line. If we had a trophy, if I stood here with a Champions League replica next to me or a Premier League replica and we'd got over the line, people wouldn't be laughing at us for these conversations, but we've been close. And I just want to give Arsenal players who have come up against, others who are given these tags in their positions, come up against them, outshone them, and actually for 3 years now have been getting to April in a position of real hope of doing something that Arsenal haven't done for a very, very long time, or in the case of the Champions League have never done, and they've got to be delivering a certain level of performance to be doing that, right? And I just want to give them their credit. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on this video. If you think the word world class is thrown about way too easily, totally fine. Then these lists fall dramatically, okay? But if you're looking at this the way I am, are they simply one of the best in the world in their position? Then I actually think you can put quite a lot of Arsenal players in there. That puts the pressure on Mikel Arteta, by the way. But notably, one forward in these lists. Because Ethan Gunéry is kind of more of a midfielder, right? Bukayo Saka, the only forward. And then in terms of creative midfielders, again, Ødegaard, but like I say, he's fallen away. So we know where we need to address areas in this team, and then maybe we can build some kind of world-class attack that might actually fire us the goals to a title and a major trophy. But this season's not done yet, so let's see. I wanted to give Arsenal players some real praise and credit. Maybe I've gone too far. Maybe I haven't. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the Goonerverse and to the Goonerverse too, and we'll catch you for a match report, I think, on Sunday after Ipswich. See you in a bit.